Yes, we're at Bray Lake in Hurricane Callum. It's Robin, Peter and Dick. And it seems, instead of just messing around with the robot boats, they've got permission to do a bit of gardening work and to clear some of the stuff around our base so there's a bit more visibility. And I'm the mug who's got to shift it all away in my car down to the place it's got to all go. Yeah, it looks like Peter's going to do a bit of serious gardening. I find dumping this in the right spot, and I'm going to get into trouble if it's not. Yeah. Right, blooming mess they're making.
Right, well there's Dick and Robin and the devastation that we've brought on the bank to give us a clear view. And the wind is kind of between 13 and 18 MPH, gusting to 25.5 here, probably a bit more on the lake. And Snoopy is out on long-term test. He's been there for, what, 48 hours? He's somewhere here. There is Snoopy. And he's surviving in this wind and keeping on station, which is pretty impressive. He is out there.
The white line is a GPS plotter for Snoopy's track. The wind, of course, was strong and from the south, and it shows that Snoopy, even though he has no explicit tacking logic, can successfully make headway eventually against the wind out to the two waypoints that he has for his 24/7 tests, the north position and the south position, and he can then maintain his station there even in quite high wind. So it was a successful test for Snoopy.
So that's the Met Office forecast for wind, gusting to 40 and 20 or 21 mph steady, or so they say.
There's one thing more difficult than sailing in a gale. It's putting a boat together in a gale. What are you letting yourself in for?
Good thing that's tied down or it would be away. Right, you want me to start it now? Are we all set to start? Yeah. Out tether. Action. Yeah, you're on camera. So Dick is going to launch this into this amazing 20 mph wind and into the sun, as always happens when you're attacked by the Luftwaffe. Well, it's going off like a bat out of hell. He's just a bit too close to the wind. He's making progress slowly. He's still going out.
What he's doing is what Robins would do if it was balanced.
Right.
So it does turn away from the wind, but it immediately turns back again.
I don't think he's making any progress.
He's made progress from here to there, so it's
well, yes, that's
50%. Once it gets to Bravo, it'll be fine.
I don't think it's made any progress relative to that boy. That boy there. Well, I'm very impressed with this keel.
Yeah, well, it just hold that tack long enough to go forward.
Yes, but then it comes back again.
Yeah.
27 degrees of roll, which is not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad in this wind.
Anything up to 30 is acceptable.
If you want to look at the GPS plot, you'll see what it's been doing.
Right, okay.
Well, with the wind blowing from the south, we didn't really expect that it would be able to sail from base to alpha, because it's just sailing too close to the wind. But let me just show you what actually happened. It started off okay. We've got the direction of the boat in green, and in cyan is the direction the wind is blowing in, and the length of the arrow is proportional to the wind strength. And then in pink we have here the actual direction of movement of the boat as shown by GPS. So we can see that the wind is quite close on the port side of the boat, but it's still making a small amount of headway, and the wind is 7 MPH. If we go on a bit, the wind is now directly from the south and stronger, and the boat is actually going backwards. So the wind being too close to the line of the boat for it to be able to sail. 15, 30, 45, about 46 degrees. Clearly it wasn't going to make it from base to alpha without tacking, and of course there's no tacking logic in this software at the moment. So Dick decided to turn the radio control on after a while, which happens when it goes magenta there. He turned the radio control on, but left the joystick in the central position, so that effectively holds the rudder central, and the boat then sailed like this with quite a strong wind. That's nearly 13 mph on the starboard side, and it's rolling 24 degrees to port, but still sailing in a more or less straight line within 10, 15, 16 degrees of the bow. It goes on like that. You just let it go on like that for a while, and then turn the autopilot back on, having got it to the east here, so that now the track from here to alpha is a saleable track. And then the boat continues, and at this point the wind is almost 90 degrees to the boat. It's almost broadside on. So here Woodstock is sailing happily from Alpha to Bravo, and a 14 mph wind gust arrives and rolls it to 42 degrees to starboard, but he doesn't get disoriented by that and just continues and happily makes it to Bravo. So here he's sailing from Bravo to Charlie with the wind on his starboard side, and it gusts up to 15.4 mph, and he rolls to 45 degrees to port, but again manages to hold his course, continues satisfactory to Charlie.
So Woodstock is approaching Delta, and he should turn towards us. Is that it? I think he's coming towards us now. Yeah, he's coming towards us.
Right, so it's a base.
It might be a weakness of his, sailing downwind. We haven't really tried this. Depends how well he sails with the wind pushing forwards on the sails.
Well, you could get a gull wing configuration, couldn't you? But
yeah,
you don't see that at the moment.
because
there's one.
Yes, but I only let the sails out 30 degrees either side. If I'd let them out 40, it would have gull winged more, but not sailed so close to the wind. It's a bit of a compromise. This is where the shock cords in the sheet, or trying shock cords in the sheet, may enable it to let the sheet out of it, ease the sheet if the wind's from the side or immediately behind. But that's an idea we need to try again. We picked the wrong time to try it last time.
Coming home, but he hasn't managed to actually make it to the jetty here where Robin is standing, because he keeps getting blown down slightly sideways. He's going to ground himself, I should think, now.
This is known as leeway, where the force on the sails from the wind blows the boat slightly downwind of the direction the boat is actually pointing in. And you can see here the Autopilot has set a course of 353 degrees, which is the correct course from where the boat is to base. The software has succeeded in getting the boat to point in that direction, but because the wind is on the port side, the boat is actually moving slightly to starboard of the direction he's pointing in. This is not an error in the PID rudder control algorithm. It's entirely because the Autopilot does not know anything about leeway, and that's something that we have to put in. What should happen is the Autopilot should notice that the boat is not travelling over the ground in the same direction that it's pointing to, and adjust the heading slightly more to port, so that the pink arrow becomes coincident with the direction we actually want to travel. Well, after Woodstock had successfully negotiated the course under his Autopilot control, not counting the bit at the beginning from base to alpha, Dick took over radio control and sailed the boat all over the place like this. And the purpose of that was to get a good amount of data for the boat sailing in all kinds of different directions, so that we could calculate a polar diagram. These are the statistics for all the wind that we got that day. The wind is mainly from the south, but you see we did get small numbers of measurements in virtually all directions. But if we look at the histogram there, you can see that it is overwhelmingly just slightly west of south, which is exactly what Dick said when we were on the lake. How he manages to work this out, I don't know. In terms of wind speed, the minimum was 1.2 MPH and the maximum was 20. Most of the measurements were in this region here, sort of 5 to 10 MPH. So not as high as the Met Office promised us, because they said 20. So we were able to get a polar diagram out of that, which is shown here on the green line. And this time I only took wind measurements that averaged between 5 and 7 MPH. So this is a polar diagram for a specific speed range, a wind speed range of 5 to 7 MPH. Also on this chart is the polar diagram we got a couple of weeks ago, when the average wind was only 2.2 MPH. So what this shows, obviously enough, is that at a given angle of wind, when the wind is at 5 to 7 MPH, the boat speed is enormously much higher than when it is only 2.2 MPH. But the more interesting fact to emerge here is that we seem to be able to sail closer to the wind in a high wind speed at 5 to 7 mph on the green line than we did on the red line, where we decided that we couldn't sail closer than 60 degrees to the wind, whereas here we can sail at 45 degrees to the wind quite happily. Both of these polar diagrams are asymmetric, and one of them has an anomaly here, which I don't know the exact reasons for these things. I'm beginning to wonder if the wind direction sensor is not correctly aligned with the axis of the boat. It might be 5 degrees out, although I had looked at it very carefully and I thought it was exactly right and couldn't possibly be anywhere near 5 degrees out, but they do seem to be slightly rotated anti-clockwise with respect to what they should be. We've got more work to do on devising a polar diagram sensibly, and I'm not sure that I'm analysing the data in the most satisfactory way at the moment. But that's where we are anyway, and the take-home message is that we can sail at 60 degrees to the wind in a low wind of 2.2 mph, and we can sail 45 degrees to the wind if there's a higher speed of 5 to 7 mph. This is the deck video of Woodstock in the second half of our tests, whilst Dick was radio controlling the boat in order to sail it at all possible angles to the wind. Generally speaking, we were extremely pleased with the performance of the new deeper keel and the rudder being further back. We seemed to have good control, and the boat did not roll anything like as much as it was before, even though the wind was gusting to 20 or possibly 25 mph. Here's a histogram of the roll angles we observed during this test. They ranged from 58 degrees to port to 61 degrees to starboard, but as you can see, most of the time the roll angle was between plus or minus 25 degrees, so much more reasonable than it was before. Unfortunately, I don't have the relevant data from the much earlier test that we did before we got the deeper keel, so I can't directly compare it, but we're reasonably happy with those roll angles, and the pitch angles of course are much smaller, as you can see there.
Woodstock's having a pee after his...
Yes, he's relieving himself. Woodstock made its way back again autonomously, and so I guess that's the end of this little excursion. Okay, so it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye from him. And where's Woodstock? It's goodbye from Woodstock.